but only after spending some time away from the role and really exploring the world of physician leadership, leadership development, adult education, and the research that I've done in organizational commitment. Only then did I uncover the secret, the one I mentioned a moment ago. Hello, and welcome to the Fire Chief Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the Chief Medical Officer. I am your host, Lee Scheinbart, and this podcast brings you the hottest and most crucial conversations in healthcare and physician leadership. Let me start today's show by asking you a simple question. And if you're not a physician, sit tight for a second. But if you are a physician and listening to this right now, ask yourself this: how did you become a competent physician? You didn't wake up one day and decide you were ready to independently manage a crashing patient and run into an emergency room and grab the clipboard and then run to the bedside. No, you didn't do that. And you didn't walk the halls of the hospital and declare yourself a board certified attending just because you felt confident about it. No, in fact, you were trained for a really long time. And once you overcame the hurdles to begin medical school, you were at first simply a student. You received content, lectures, and testing of your knowledge, your skills, and competencies. And hopefully, you received some feedback along the way too. Then you entered apprenticeship, what we all call internship and residency. Long days, longer nights, rounds, and even more rounds, all the while being shaped by both your experiences and by those who were more senior to you. You were shaped by senior residents or fellows who shared tips and pearls about how to do things, and great attendings pulled you aside and said, "Let me show you something." You were observed, you were evaluated, you were corrected again and again and again. Less of a student and more of a trainee, but over time you became fluent, not just technically competent, but stylistically developed. You learned how to think, how to decide, and how to show up in the exam room. Now, at some point in your life, years later, you found yourself listening to a podcast about physician leadership right now, in fact. And maybe you are a physician who is seeking to grow as a leader, or you are in the other group, listeners that aren't physicians. Remember, I told you to hold tight for a moment. Maybe you're in that other group and you're working very, very closely with an emerging physician leader. Either way, consider another, maybe even much harder question. Who is training you or your colleague to become a leader? For most physicians, the honest answer is no one, literally no one. Now, that's not to say that the emerging physician leader hasn't earned some advanced education or certification or even another degree, or hasn't worked closely with some amazing role model along the way. But who is specifically providing the training for leadership? Look, consider pro athletes for a second. A pro spends years learning and developing their skills in order to be a top athlete. But as they truly approach their maximum potential, they do not simply practice more. They don't go for another 10,000 hours, another 10,000 hours. They actually begin to train very differently, very, very differently, in fact. Once they have refined their muscle memory and built their stamina and developed instinct, they begin to work at an entirely different level. And while still at the highest levels, they rely on coaches, often several of them. Around here, spring training is about to begin here in Florida, while many of you are still digging out from your brutal winter. And as the training camps open around here, the players, young and old, will ready themselves for one of the longest seasons in professional sports. And each player seeks to find a spot on the roster, to keep a spot on the roster, or to avoid losing last year's spot. As a hitter in baseball, a player may have a batting coach and a conditioning coach and a strength coach. And then they find the best coach of all, a mindset coach. Performance at the next level in the big leagues requires calibration. It requires someone watching closely and saying, "Hey, you are swinging too early. You're holding tension in the bat. You're reacting instead of anticipating." No elite player ever says, "I've made it and I no longer need a coach." But getting back to medicine, Once we have finished our training, we behave as entirely autonomous professionals. Once board certified, we are certainly self sufficient. Sure, we have the recertification and maintenance of certification pathways and our CME requirements for our license renewals, but those are relatively weak measures of our competency. And perhaps that's all we have today. But most practicing physicians who recertify do this as an exercise of regulation and requirement, not to actually become better level physicians. But it is often worse for those that begin to ascend into formal leadership roles. We assume our clinical excellence and our experience automatically translate into leadership excellence, and that assumption is false. Leadership is a different sport entirely. You or your physician colleague and your dyad partner may have the same aptitude and intelligence to learn more things in life. But as Marshall Goldsmith says in his book by the same name, what got you here won't get you there. Putting aside any healthcare MBA, including those that have students embedded briefly with an executive team or completing a capstone project, up until just recently, there has been no formal apprenticeship pathway for a physician to become a healthcare executive. I know, sounds odd, maybe even shocking to you. And only recently have a few organizations joined together to provide such a pathway to learn both the basics around healthcare administration in a way that mirrors a traditional clinical fellowship, but it is still relatively new and with very few slots available across the US. And it may still need refinement to produce the type of healthcare executive and leader that is so desperately needed right now in healthcare today. Look, don't get me wrong. You can certainly pursue degrees, certifications, educational programs. These are all valuable, but they're educational experiences, not experiential development. Let me say that again. They are educational in nature and not developmental. They do not work with you in real time to explore your strengths and weaknesses, what you know and what you don't know, what methods of influence seem to work for you or not at all, and why. In clinical medicine, feedback is embedded into the system. In executive leadership, feedback is rare and often filtered. That absence of correction can stall growth. Here's the hidden curriculum, the truth that goes unspoken, the reality inside the mystery of why some physician leaders succeed and others do not. The transition from physician to executive is not incremental. It is identity level. As a physician, you identify as a physician. Ask any room of doctors to tell the audience a few things about themselves, and they invariably say things like, "Hi, my name is Lee, and I'm an oncologist." Or, "Hi, my name is Dan, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon." Or, "Hi, my name is Kelly, and I'm an OBGYN." Or even, "Hey, my name is Sue, and I'm a hospitalist." Their whole being is wrapped up in their specialty forever and always. Now, ask a room of healthcare professionals the exact same question, and here's what you get. "Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm currently the Orthopedic Service Line Director." Or, "Hi, I'm Donna, and I'm presently the Vice President of Quality and Safety." They speak with a title and a role, and it's couched in the moment of that role. "I am presently this, I am currently serving as," and they do not define their end all be all with their chosen profession. And the structure is completely different when you move toward a non-clinical role on an organizational team. Remember what they told you when you played sports as a little kid? There is no I in team. As a surgeon, you operate patient by patient. As an executive, you operate system by system. As a physician, certainty is rewarded. As an executive, ambiguity dominates. As a physician, autonomy is prized. As an executive, interdependence is everything. In the boardroom, your clinical brilliance is respected, but it is not sufficient. You must think in terms of enterprise risk, payer mix, capital allocation, workforce stability, financial resilience, and long-term strategic positioning. No residency prepared you for the moral and financial friction between mission and margin. Yet the boards, they expect you to deliver high quality care, maintain a positive margin, and ensure long-term sustainability, and uphold the organizational mission simultaneously. Healthcare today is complex and capital intense. Whether one embraces or critiques corporatization, the reality remains that scale, capital deployment, and financial risk management are part of modern healthcare leadership. Executives are accountable not only for patient outcomes, but also for infrastructure sustainability, contract negotiations, workforce engagement, transparency and compensation, and public trust. These are not clinical skills, they are executive skills. And most physicians never experience structured development for this level of responsibility. They read books, attend conferences, and gather credentials, yet after all the classes and certifications, they still require something more: a coach. And not just any coach, a field coach, one who has played the sport in a past life. Who knows what the rules of engagement look like from the bench and at home plate? A physician coach. And the best kind of field coach? A Jedi mindset coach. A coach that can take your years of technical perfections, your conditioning, your stamina, your endurance, and elevate you to something altogether different. Executive coaching is not therapy, nor is it cheerleading. It is discipline development. It involves someone asking, how are you showing up? What should be occupying your attention? Where are your blind spots? Where are you over rotating? Where are you under leveraging your strengths? A coach helps rehearse difficult conversations, refine executive presence, navigate political complexity, align values with strategy, and calibrate influence. In medicine, someone corrected your procedural posture. In leadership, someone must correct your executive posture because few others will. But again, that type of coaching can be delivered by just about anyone. I believe that. I've had that type of coaching. It certainly helped me back when I was a know-it-all, hubris-filled, arrogant young physician leader. I learned about my strengths, my weaknesses, my blind spots, my triggers, my derailers, but only after spending some time away from the role and really exploring the world of physician leadership, leadership development, adult education, and the research that I've done in organizational commitment. Only then did I uncover the secret, the one I mentioned a moment ago, the one that requires the mindset coach, just like elite athletes. When elite athletes are able to compete and perform at the highest levels, to win gold medals, to win championships, they take their highly tuned machines of a body and they literally let go. They do a Luke Skywalker and trust in the Force. They become one with something bigger than themselves. They achieve a state of being that allows them to perform beyond the ordinary. The deeper question becomes one of identity. Do you primarily see yourself as a physician with administrative duties or as an executive leader who is medically trained? That distinction shapes decisions, posture, and influence. Coaching accelerates this identity shift. The right coaching does even more. It integrates your clinical expertise into a broader strategic framework. It prepares you for the level above you, not merely the level you currently occupy. Elite physician leaders do not stop training. They change arenas and go to the next level. They let go of their prior identity. They unlearn the skills and techniques that gave them their position in life and take on new skills. They take on a coach that rewires their brain, their automatic responses, their approaches, their executive functions, literally in the frontal cortex of the brain. In the arena of leadership, the stakes are broader and the variables more complex. If you are a physician serious about leading at the next level, or you work with someone who is that person, ask yourself, who is refining your thinking? Who is challenging your assumptions? And who is invested enough in your growth to tell you the truth? Not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Who is going to play a full stop Jedi mind trick on you? And more importantly, will you let them? In the arena of executive physician leadership, you need a physician mind coach. Here at the Fire Chief Podcast, we are in transition. You may have noticed some of the new graphics, new music, and we recently have concluded the month of January with guests from such heavy hitters as Philips, the Joint Commission, and United Healthcare. And now we are bringing in guests that will help you address your career as a physician leader. Recently, Dr. Matt Sabin shared his personal journey to a career transition, and he introduced us to Bill Cowan, an expert in building a winning career. In between that, Dr. Kevin O'Connor reminded our listeners about the honor of leading and taking care of things that are not yours. Some of our upcoming guests will share more about coaching, about executive contracts and compensation, and about how to measure your leadership competencies. As part of this program transitioning, we are also proud to be partnering with a team that will support the next level of the podcast, along with the next level for you in your search for your next career move. More on that very, very soon. You have been listening to the Fire Chief Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the Chief Medical Officer. Want to learn more about physician leadership coaching for yourself or perhaps for another? Connect with me on LinkedIn. From there, you can book an appointment with me and we can chat. I love talking with CMOs from all over the world, so give me a shout. Hit the batting cages, run the extra mile, be a leader, but remember whatever you do. In the words of Sergeant Phil Esterhaus, let's be careful out there.